I know we're gonna wait. We're good? Thank you. Okay, additions and deletions to the agenda since Friday mailing.
Yes, we do. Business considerations. We'll have 6.27 will be the Professional Operations Association's MOA. 6.28 is food service bids. 6.29 I'll need to add for the retirees. I'll need to update 7.9, and we will have two resignations for teachers. We have a couple of just additions for Regents teachers, and we do have a retiree bus driver. Chaperones, computer students, special summer services, special education teachers, speech teachers. So we have a couple of additions, a lot of additions. CSE committee members, so yeah, they'll be reflected in my minutes.
Do we have all the numbers?
Yes. The only one that I'd be adding, other than what you have in front of you, is 6.29.
6.2. Okay, thank you. Can we get a motion for the additions and the deletions? Mr. Engel, second. Mr. McFerrin, all in favor? Aye. Okay. Hearings and petitions for the first session. We'll go through our comments here. We ask everyone to come to the podium and speak. We have a 3-minute limit for everyone. We ask comments be addressed to the board from the podium and the microphone set up for use. And that's it. We will call Ted Smith regarding the agenda item 621.
Good evening, everybody. Congratulations on any retirees still in the house here. I guess that's just Miller at this point. Anyway, as most of you know, my name's Ted Smith. I'm a homeowner and taxpayer in the district, father of 3 district kids, English teacher of 2 decades, and president-elect of RCSTA. You also have the sense, I hope, that I'm a true believer in RCS, taught here for more than a dozen years before moving my family here. And I've been a cheerleader for our district and active in our community ever since. I believe in this community and in this district. I know that working in good faith partnership, we can take a great leap forward and drive better outcomes for the community's kids. Given that belief that together we can accomplish great things for the kids of this community, I'd respectfully request that agenda item 621, the motion to fund the capital reserve account opened in March, be tabled until such time as there is a contract agreement ratified between RCSTA and the district. As you are aware, RCS has closed every recent fiscal year with an average annual surplus of about $3 million. That means we've been taking in about $3 million of taxpayer money more than we need to pay our bills and invest in board-approved programming every single year. Taken over multiple years, the district has in our reckoning at least $10 million it is yet to invest, not counting this year's overage. At the same time as our finances have been well in the black, even in excess of regulatory guidelines, our academic indicators have been slipping backward into the red. As everyone in our community is acutely aware, we have witnessed, and indeed are still witnessing to this very day, both a terrible exodus of talented teachers and, in some cohorts anyway, a disturbing decline in our kids' educational outcomes. All of these things are plainly connected. It has been the position of RCSTA throughout what is an active negotiations process that reinvesting an amount equivalent to a very small fraction of those surplus funds in our faculty to attract talented new teachers to the district and to persuade experienced teachers to stay is an entirely necessary first step in rebuilding our academic outcomes and kickstarting a genuine and sustainable RCS renewal. Our concern is that agenda item 621 could inadvertently imperil this opportunity for the district to make such important and overdue investments. And we ask, as a sign of good faith, that the board table the motion until such time as a contract is ratified, hopefully in short order. Thank you all for your serious consideration.
Okay, thank you. I need a motion for one or all of our business considerations, or whatever motion.
I'll make a motion for 6 points. 6.1 to 6.15.
Okay.
And then for 6.22 to 6.26, so we can address,
So holding out 616 through 621.
so 621, so we can address them separately.
So everything but 616 through 621.
Everything but 616,
Yes.
everything, and 621.
Yes, including the additions.
So 6.1 through 629, keeping it 616 and 621.
Second.
Okay, second, Mr. Engel. Any discussion on any of those? No? Yeah, I do want to call out, I do have the mark. With gratitude, the gift card, a donation from Ravena Shop and Save for the Friends Club, a donation of a tuba from the Dubois and Morrow family, a donation for Boom Whackers from Stacy and Emily Kraft for the music classroom in A.W. Becker, and a donation for Jim Dandy Teeter Totter for the pre-K kindergarten courtyard at A.W. Becker. An anonymous donor. Okay? Any other discussion?
On 6.25, which relates to the retirement of the mascot. There's been a lot of communication about this over the past week as the second survey went out, and I think there's been a lot of feedback to the survey, which is great. With all the excitement, though, I think that it's also generated a lot of chatter within the community, some of which is very constructive and some of which I think might not be entirely accurate. So there's just 2 points that I wanted to get some clarity on tonight, just so we put it out there and make sure that the record is clear for everybody. So the first relates to the funding for changing everything that will be required to be changed. And I've heard some statements, and I'm not sure where they originated from, but the essence of it is that it will cost as much to change as we would lose in state aid if we didn't change, and therefore we should not change. I'm looking at a sheet here that estimates state aid in the ballpark of $20 million per year. Is that roughly accurate? So if we didn't change, would we lose about $20 million in state funding per year?
That's what state regulations proposed, yes.
Okay. And how
Per year
much would it
until we
cost?
changed.
Sorry?
Per year until
Per
we
year.
changed.
Per year until we do
Comply.
comply. How much would it cost to make the required changes? Do we have a rough estimate of that?
Yep, in the early spring, we prepared a spreadsheet of all the areas based on our buildings and grounds walkabout, where we believed that the investments would have to be made. Beyond the scope of regular maintenance, things that would have to be repaired anyway, estimated to be about $70,000 to make the changes to things such as the banners in the gymnasium, the wrestling mats, the floor of the gym, which would be sanded prior to its longevity, its normal sanding cycle. The turf field will be at the end of its cycle, so it's not really an additional expense. But we estimated $70,000, and our intention was to pay it through the Lafarge beautification money, so it wouldn't be taxpayer money that was paying for it.
And that would be a one-time expense?
It would be, and it would be over a year and a half, because once we make a final decision in the fall as a community, then we would begin that change process to whatever the new mascot logo would be, going through the winter of 2024 into that entire year, and then into June of 2025.
Okay.
Would that cover uniforms too, Brian?
Say it again, Bill?
The 70,000, does that cover change of uniforms that would need to change out, or is that?
Uniform is our regular uniform replacement plan.
So we would keep the current uniforms until they are scheduled to be replaced?
Correct. Yep, and this last cycle, we purchased uniforms that are neutral. They're the green and gold, and they say RCS on them. And we knew that some, because of where they were in the cycle, we had to prioritize and move them a little farther forward
Okay.
in the cycle.
I think they all have to be done by a certain time as long as
End
that.
of 2025, I thought,
Right.
right? Is it still end of 2025?
Yes.
And then just for some additional context, just as I look at these numbers here, of our revenue each year, 20 million approximately comes from the state, 27 million comes from the tax levy. So if we eliminated $20 million of revenue from state sources, that would put a hole of almost 50% into our budget.
Correct.
Rough numbers, if I pay $6,000 in taxes right now, I would pay approximately $12,000 in taxes next year and every year thereafter until the mascot was changed.
Right.
So just to give context to everybody who's considering the financial implications of not complying with this, it would be huge.
And it's not a one-time expense for them, it's a recurring expense until they actually make the change, or unless New York State changes.
And then the second point relates to historical artifacts, so trophies and other memorabilia that might bear the name Indians or some indication of history, that we would need to burn and discard and destroy all those items. So I went through today and I looked at the commissioner's regulations and I looked at the public comments, and the education department, in my reading was pretty clear that historical artifacts do not need to be destroyed. We're not erasing history here. We're changing use of the mascot going forward. So that was just a point that I wanted to observe.
So if that's the case, the donated
Monument,
can stay? Because that was a point of
big one.
discussion before. So if your understanding is correct, the monument can stay.
Yeah, because that's 1985.
You mean the sign in front of the middle school?
The grand,
Yeah, one of the classes did something and they have an Indian head.
Class of 87 made it, my class put it in, 87, 88, yeah. But I don't think that's going to be allowed to stay.
so our idea was to find a place to honor and retire, not to destroy or discard. Same thing with all the trophies.
Have it
and all
somewhere
that.
just
Yeah,
less.
There's no need to do anything like that with our trophy cases. It's
Right,
just.
correct.
But you're right, as an entrance, the entrance, it says Home of the Indians, so we would find a place of honor for it rather than making it the
Okay.
first thing that people saw when they came in.
That's all.
Thank
Okay,
you.
perfect.
Thanks
Any
for
other
clarifying
discussion?
Yeah.
All in favor?
Hey,
Aye. Motion's passed. Need a motion for 616, 621, or both separately, it doesn't matter.
Can we,
Because we can talk
They do a motion,
but then we have to vote on them all go down, right? Could, I make a motion for everything right now except 621. 616 through 620, and then
622.
that would be it, right?
we did all the
I
other.
thought we did everything but 616 and 621 are the only two we didn't.
No,
No, no.
616.
16 is through
Got it.
621. So I think right now I'd make a motion for 616 to 620.
Okay,
Second.
do a second, Ms. Burns, discussion.
Mr. Bohm, during his portion of the meeting tonight, was going to talk about reserves. I think now is an appropriate time to do that. Would you agree as part of discussion?
Yes.
Would-
Yes.
Yeah, so I just wanted to clarify those resolutions that you guys are currently voting on right now. So there is no actual movement of the funds. Instead, these are actually simply to authorize limits to transfer the money. So this is a necessary step that needs to be taken at the end of the fiscal year. And the district has performed this in previous years before this one. We will not, we won't have final numbers until our year-end closing is finalized, which is not going to be until July and August. And then when that is finalized, I will report our findings to the board, and then any excess funds and where I have suggestions on where we should move it. So at this time, these motions have nothing to do with moving any money. It's
So
just
Jesse, are
authorize-
these to establish accounts?
No, they're already established. So this is just authorizing, because we have to do it within the fiscal year. So, and this is the last meeting in the fiscal year. It's just authorizing a maximum amount,
Just the limit?
just a limit. No money is moving any accounts.
So will additional board authorization be required to actually move the money at
Yes.
some later time?
Yeah, we can do that, yep.
Do we need to have a discussion? I think we've had this before as far as what each of these reserve funds are. Do we want to do that
Yeah.
now?
It's up to you. I'm
You
more
guys
than happy to
okay
do
with
that. I was gonna do it during my presentation. There is a kind of a cheat sheet I put in your packet here.
Yep.
If, I'm
You
more
guys wanna
happy
go
to
through
go
that now?
line by line if
Might
you
as
want me
well go
to,
through
or,
Go through them now.
Yeah, let's
Yeah.
go
want me
through
to go
them
through
line
now?
by line.
Absolutely, okay.
Even just reading them out, just, that helps.
So unemployment reserve, so this is, we have this to reimburse the state unemployment insurance fund for payments. So if someone's out on workers' comp and we owe them payments, this is a spot where we can save some money or hold some money. Generally, what we do is we look at our outstanding people on unemployment and put an appropriate amount of money in there based on that. Reserve for retirement ERS, this is for payments for retired contributions for non-instructional teaching. It's basically for our employer contributions every year. And that's very similar with a sub-fund, the TRS, which is the same thing but for instructional staff.
Jesse, how do you come up with your maxes for these things? So you had 355,213 for the one. That
So-
seems pretty specific.
Yeah, so TRS, it limits the amount of 2% to the payroll,
There you go.
instructional payroll.
Okay.
And ERS, it doesn't have that requirement.
So it's basically, it's a calculation that you get to your numbers.
So the reserve for tax rate, that is for the payment of claims, judgment claims for tax. That is, we get a notice when we have one of these filings, and we take that notice, and that's how we build that reserve, is off those notices and amount. We hold the amount that we could possibly have to pay back. So that is something that we adjust every year.
And we've used that over the past couple of years, right? We had to use it for the company up by Sabic, right?
I don't know
Cogen,
off the
we
top of my
used
head,
it for 3 or 4 different people we've
Yeah.
approved in.
Well, individuals,
the
but I
last
thought we had
couple
a rather larger one with the town of Bethlehem.
Yeah.
When we
And
had
that's,
Cogen.
that's what this is for. So
Yeah.
it doesn't affect your general budget.
Okay.
So the employee benefits reserve, this is for the accruals for employee benefits. So when teachers or other non-instructional individuals are accrual sick time, vacation time, when they retire, they get a certain amount of payment. And this fund is used to pay that. And actually, I'd also like to point out that at 620, this is actually to actually eventually use that money from the employee benefits reserve to pay for the retirement accruals for some of the ones retiring in this school year.
So that's how that calculation comes in, is that you
Right,
look
but
at.
we can't calculate it till the end of the year because it's based on their salary amount. So there could be some more salary. It could also be they use more sick days. So you can't,
So
I can't
you're
say, hey, I
projecting.
need 150,000 right now because it's not the end of the school year.
Yeah.
Capital reserve, this is to pay the cost of any object or purpose for which bonds may be issued. So basically, capital projects.
that's 620.
We are using 75,000 for our $2.3 million project from our capital reserve, and 5.1 million for our $15 million project. Capital reserves have a little bit more restriction to it. The public needs to approve setting it up and also needs to approve taking money out. We just need board action to move money into it.
And we use that money so we don't have to increase taxes.
Right.
Correct, when we do construction projects.
The way that I've done it and the district has done it is to lower the local cost of the taxpayers when we do these large capital projects.
Do we have one capital reserve right now, or do we have more?
We actually have two.
Okay.
And the other limits to it, once you put money in, you can't, so we had a $10 million one.
Right.
We have up to 6 million. I can't put any more above it. So that one only has about 700,000 left in it. And then the new one, which was established for $10 million, we can start putting money in that.
And that's what the voters voted on at this last,
Right, 621 is what the
So
No,
Jesse,
the
voted on.
creation of it, not how it's funded.
right, not funded, just the creation of it, right?
Just the creation, yep. We haven't moved any.
And now
funds
we're
into
just
it.
approving that we can put up to that much money in it.
Right.
Well, we're not
With your-
addressing
with
that
your
one right-
authorization.
We're not on that one right now.
So Jesse, just a quick question. So these are a brand new, do we have these account, because I thought we had established some of these accounts before. So have we established them before and used them before?
Yeah, these are, we're not establishing
anything
these
Just,
reserves tonight.
you're just establishing new limits?
Yes, authorization to put money into it eventually, because it has to do within the given year. Again,
Do you
I'm
have
gonna-
balances in these accounts right now?
Yeah, they're on this
that-
page if we want
there
to
we go.
move on to this one. I didn't know
Yep.
if we want to go that, but
No,
yeah.
because I think that helps
I can definitely
understand.
move on if you want me to jump over here, but on the top of this page here, it has the balances. The only thing that's not exactly to our general ledger at this point is the capital reserve has, still has $6 million in it, but we did allocate the 750,000 and 5.1 million in it. So I did take that out so you get a more accurate look of what's actually in there.
So I know what it's for, but so people understand, the 750,000 of that is going towards the $2.3 million
Yes.
project that
Yep.
we're doing. Okay.
Yep.
And the $5 million is going towards the.
$15 million
yes,
one, yep.
Right.
Yeah.
Is there any other?
Not on the definitions, no, but on the balances.
Okay.
You know, just, for example, the employee benefit reserves, you know, that balance right now is roughly $3.5 million. I don't know if that's a good amount, a bad amount. I don't know that we need to increase it, but there's a board resolution authorizing an increase of 500,000. So I guess my question is, why are we increasing it? Is it not where it should be? Is it higher than it should be? Is there a goal for where it should be? And if there's a goal, what's that based on?
So that employee benefit reserve is one of the most restrictive. It limits us to be able to move things out of it. I wouldn't recommend putting a lot of money in there because that 3.5 is a significant amount of money. I think a better discussion needs to be had about a strategy of why we have a certain
So
amount of.
this is the one where we project what we have to pay each year, correct? And since the market's been good for so long, the amount that we've had to put in or contribute has been lower, but there have been years, since I've been on the board, where the market's not been so
Right,
good.
and we had to pull.
It's jumped up significantly, and if we don't have reserves in place, we could get socked in one given year for our contribution.
Yeah, that's more of the retirement.
Okay.
That's the
That's the,
reserve for retirement,
1.3?
PRS and TRS.
Yeah.
Yeah. The employee benefits is when.
Oh, payout?
Yeah, when somebody retires, they get accrual amounts.
So I guess the discussion in the future would be looking at what's paid out over the past couple of years, and what you project going forward, and figuring out what should be an acceptable limit that we fund the accounts at.
Absolutely.
You don't want to have too little, but you don't want to drastically overfund it at the same time. So that would be another conversation that we would have to have.
I would suggest, and I would suggest having a very detailed conversation, maybe in a finance committee meeting, where we can really dig into it and then later report what we discussed in a board meeting.
Right. And again, tonight is just to set potential limits.
Right, there's
Not, so
money-
you would
no
still have
money's
plenty of
moving.
time to have further conversation
Yeah,
before you allocate and approve money to actually go into them.
Absolutely.
Right. We'd have to approve the movement of money.
I would
This is
think.
just
It would be
limits.
authorized, yeah.
And
you
I would
guys
think,
have-
Jesse, if you were doing that in the July timeframe, that you have the finance meeting with the report out prior to it, so that the board has the opportunity to see what your projections are before approving any more funds going in.
Yeah, absolutely. We could set something up.
Now, what,
That you definitely can, for the people that are going to be on the board.
what would be the penalty if we didn't set these limits tonight and the clock ticked out?
You couldn't put money into it from this
Yeah.
fiscal year.
it
So
just-
we
it
would be
just go
frozen at
right-
what we have now.
Yeah, and it would go right into the unassigned fund balance.
Okay, we don't want that.
Be frozen until next year. You couldn't change them again until next year.
Right.
Right,
Okay. That makes sense.
thank you.
Okay.
So now,
Any other questions or discussion? No? Okay, all in favor? And we need a motion for 621. Mr. Mr. McFerrin, a second. Mrs. Burns, discussion.
So this motion here, is this another,
So,
my question with this one is, when we created this, we asked, and it went to the public and explained to the public, we're creating this with no immediate plans to fund it. And that's what was said, it was just creating in case we want to move it. If we don't say, okay, well, we can increase it by this much, then are we stuck not being able to put any money into it for the year?
yep.
Okay, so that was my question.
So this is still not funding it?
This is
Just
not
see-
funding
it-
it.
The
No money in
wording
it right now.
sounds like it's
I
funding.
know,
it.
the
Yes.
wording's very confusing, and when I read it over and read it over, but then again, I did look at last year's in June, and I think it pretty much said the exact same thing.
It does say the exact
But
same
it was confusing. So if we don't say yes to creating, funding up to 4% of the unassigned fund balance, then we can't put anything in this account over the year, for the next year.
That's
Okay.
correct.
So if we say yes to this, we're not funding it. We're just creating that we could do that.
Yeah, up to
And
this
then
amount.
we'd have to have discussions down the road as to if and when and how much we fund it. Correct?
Absolutely.
And we won't have those numbers till summertime.
Right, yeah, we have to close the books, and then the auditors have to come and, review the numbers.
But we don't have to move money into this account until we want to move money.
Right, we don't have
Or
to,
at
if
all.
you don't want to, we don't have to move at all. It
And our-
could sit there for 10
Wanted
years
to make
and
sure it
not
was
do
on the
anything.
record that, so we know, nothing's going into this account until we authorize it.
So
Okay.
Again, it could sit there for 10 years and nothing can happen.
Okay?
So will we ultimately close out that other capital reserve fund once we spend that money on the next two construction projects, that money in that reserve fund?
So
will
there's
be
still a
done, and
little
then
bit
we'll
left,
move the-
there's still a little bit left in that other one, there's about 200,000 left in that other one.
Okay.
But there is a limit on it too, so.
Right,
A time
Once
limit?
we use that, that goes away, and then we have to create another one.
Right.
or use this one.
Right.
This new one, yeah.
So how does this look in the future? If we decide that we're going to move money into one of these funds, is there a resolution here that specifically, explicitly says, be it resolved that the district shall move this amount of money into this fund? So we'll expect to see that in the future
Yeah,
before
that's-
any transfer of money is
Right.
made?
Absolutely.
Yeah, we have to approve all
That
that.
was my point. If we approve this so we can establish it, so we could move money, but no money is going to move till if and when we decide as a board to move it.
Is this one of the ones, are these the accounts where it has to be a board resolution to approve it, and there's got to be a board resolution to take it out?
Yes,
Yeah.
most,
So
the
you gotta do
majority
both.
of
You
them
gotta
are
go both
that.
ways. So you got to approve it, you got to approve the spending of it.
My initial reading of this language
Yeah.
Because we were moving.
looked to
Just
me
the
like we were authorizing the transfer of money.
Yep.
If there's a separate resolution that specifically says you can transfer money, I'll approve this, that's
Yeah.
I don't
fine.
think it even happens till, what, about September? After the
Yeah,
final
it's down the
year's
line after
numbers?
the audit and.
You gotta wait
after
till
the-
June 30th, and then the auditor.
I just wasn't sure exactly what I was
Until September.
signing up for here, if I was to vote on this, so now I understand, thank you.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion's passed. I need a motion for one or all the personnel considerations.
Make a motion for all.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Beninati?
We're all the way to 740, right?
Yeah.
Yes, and we got two things. Do want to call out our retirements. The Board of Education approves with regret the retirement of Bonnie McNeely,
Lawrence.
Jean Stats Deldine, John Brown, and
And that's it.
Lawrence Flanagan Jr. So, thank all of them and good luck in retirement. Do you have any other discussion?
Yeah, I have a question, I just don't know which. 722, the coaching recommendations, I saw that there was a worksheet, there was a lot of yellow boxes on it. Can we have discussion over what that means? I know that there was applicants for a lot of positions, and I don't know if there's a process going on. I don't know if there's been any communication out to applicants. I've been asked by a couple of applicants about a status, if I knew anything. So I was wondering if you could speak to where we are in the process, what the process will be if we haven't hired yet for particular positions, what we're going through, and how we're gonna proceed moving forward.
Yellow boxes mean one of two things, that either there were no applicants or multiples, and they haven't been interviewed yet. So those that, we hope to fill all of them by the time we get to our July meeting. Yeah, the July 12th meeting is where the remainder of them will be approved.
Is there any time frame? Is there a deadline that for some reason, I thought tonight was the night that we had to have everything done. And that's why I was confused.
Next year, we're going to seek to have everything done by May 1st cycle, because it gives everyone an opportunity to know where they need to be. But beyond May 1st, there isn't a hard and fast deadline. But we do want to complete all the interviews prior to the end of the school year, because people travel to the four corners of the world.
Yeah, I think some of the applications were due in the middle of May. I think some of those candidates, they've reached out to me personally because they didn't know what the status was. They haven't heard from our athletic department. If something could be communicated about what the intended process is, because they don't know if they're still in the running for the position or not. And I think it's just good form to stay in touch if we're developing a process. We haven't come to resolution on that yet. I just think it's good form for our athletic director possibly to reach out to those candidates and let them know.
Will do.
Okay.
I have a question too. For 7.2 to 7.6, they're all listed as long-term subs. What is,
I was
why
going
is
to
that?
talk about that. So there's
Okay.
a few reasons why someone could be a long-term sub. One is that they are part of our grant monies or grant monies with a term limit, such as the ARP or the ESSER or CARES money. So some people are appointed with a end date because that's when the grant ends.
Okay.
Also, if someone is not certificated in New York State in the role in which they've been hired, they can't be hired probationary. They're hired as a long-term sub.
Okay. Is that the case with all of these positions? It's one of those two reasons?
Yes, correct. It's
Okay.
one or either one. Yeah, one of the others.
Are they in the union, these people? Long-term subs are?
Yeah, if they're a full-time employee, they can be a member of the union, even though it says sub in it, yes.
Any other discussion? All in favor? Aye. 8 is informational items only, special reports. Nothing to report. I will turn it over to Dr. Bailey.
And to finish my answer to the rest of Jenny's question, as you've seen, it isn't uncommon when someone actually receives their certification, we do a reappointment.
Okay.
So you'll see that for some of these folks, because they're just they're waiting on state ed to give them their final approval, or they have to take a couple classes, like the child abuse workshop, things like that. So you'll see some of these updated in the next few months. It has been a celebratory few weeks. Anybody who's been around the community has certainly seen field days and color runs and field trips. Our kids traveling all over. The 350 anniversary of the purchasing of the land for Coeymans. Did I do that right? Not the founding of Coeymans, but when they first secured the land. And Paul Tonko was down at the Port of Coeymans speaking eloquently, as he always does. And also it's worth noting that Marissa Tute, one of our teachers, was the co-planner for this amazing event. I was told that there were like 2,000 people at Geralman on Friday night, and there were certainly hundreds and hundreds and hundreds there on Saturday. Also, Jane Travis, one of our teaching assistants, was one of the marshals, which is great to see her roll by. And our chorus, kids from our chorus performed on Saturday's ceremony. We have a number of moving up ceremonies happening and graduations. Becker and the middle school are both next week on Wednesday. Becker being at 10 a.m. at the high school. And the middle school moving up day is also at the high school at 6:30. And then Peter B's moving up is Thursday the 22nd at 10. And then high school graduation's Friday at 6 at the convention center. And we'll be sending lots of reminders out to families as we get closer. Those last 2 days, Wednesday and Thursday next week, are half days for our elementary and middle school students. So they'll be heading home early on those days, and I know that our families definitely need to remember that. Monday is Juneteenth, so no student attendance on that day, and most of the district is off on that day. It's hard to believe it's the end of June. So I look forward to these commencement ceremonies. It's just like the graduation of our retirees. It's very meaningful to see the culmination of years of work, whether it be in fifth grade or in eighth grade or in high school. And I know a lot of the board members will be there at various graduations over the next week, so I'm excited to share that with you.
Good. We will turn it over to Mr. Bohm.
So I spoke to Eric Robinson at Schoolhouse Construction, who is our construction manager for our larger capital project, and asked him if he could give us a proposal for being the construction manager of our smaller $2.3 million project. He did sit down with the architect and got a little bit more detail about what's exactly in the project and the timelines. He didn't give an actual proposal, but what he did was give us a range for a quote. This will be for on-site 3 to 5 days a week. The 3 being on a slower construction day and the 5 being a more of a busy construction day. His price range is between $125,000 and $150,000. It is about 5% of the project.
One project, all the, correct, everything?
We just included the capital project.
Just the
It
indoor
won't
stuff.
include the alternates.
It won't include the
That
other
wouldn't
ones, no.
include any basic, that would include the indoor stuff and the press box, because that's in the 2.
Everything in that $2.3 million project,
But nothing on the baseball field or the dugout.
not the fence.
No dugouts, no fencing.
Right,
Okay.
yeah.
And that's funded not through the contingency, but other funds?
We haven't discussed funding yet with that. I would think that would be part of the capital project funding, which make it very difficult.
Yeah.
But again, I haven't even looked at funding for it yet.
At the present time, the plan is for Bill Schramm and his team to oversee the project, correct? And the architect.
Well, it says, yep.
Is there any potential way that we could leverage the expertise of Schoolhouse in conjunction with Bill and his staff to maybe
Like a
not have
consulting?
3 to 5 days a week,
I know,
but maybe
that's a
have
lot.
some
I mean,
sort of?
he does have an hourly rate.
Is it as simple as saying it's $150 an hour or something like that? Or?
I didn't get into that.
No, but is it something, it'd be nice to have some sort of assistance for Bill and his team. We've seen how projects can kind of go sideways. But the 150,000 is a big number.
A lot more than.
For such a little
It's a big
project,
number.
for a small project.
After talking to Eric, he said that he is doing this at other districts for similar concerns. I did kind of like allude to, is there any way we can go a different direction than this? And he said the way that they do the construction management is that they're involved, right? It's hard for him to come and say, hey, he told me this, I'll give my expert opinion on it.
You're either
He
all
has
in or you're
boots
not.
on the ground.
Yeah, you're
you
either
know.
all in or you're not.
Yeah, that's kind of what he alluded to. I'm more than happy with the board's discretion, if the board would like me to, call him back up and see if there's a different avenue I can try to go with, but
I mean, just as a reference, what did we spend for all the forensic work we needed after the last issue?
Oh, a lot.
With
I mean,
our consultant.
Probably $400,000 or
We'd have to look up and
$500,000.
see
the last
what
project,
Carr,
the last big project.
yeah,
what Paul Carr would have spent.
to help
Like 50.
advocate for us,
It was a lot.
a lot.
It was probably,
Probably 3 times what this guy would
Yeah.
cost up
Oh, yeah.
There's time constraints on this one too, like he has to be in by what, September 15th? I think, so there's certain things that have to be done in the building within a legal timeframe.
Yeah.
That can't go astray, so.
Yeah.
We don't have to decide tonight, right?
No.
But we,
No, but time is,
Right.
like you said,
Because
is,
the earlier he's involved, the more he can catch and
Right,
correct.
You also want to get him to commit if that's.
The other piece of it is that our architect and Bill have their first meeting with the contractors tomorrow. We awarded the bids last week. And really, after the meeting tomorrow, they'll have a clearer picture of what our timelines will actually look like. We had estimations of when they'd be able to get into the elementary classrooms, when they'd be able to start field work. And it really comes down to now mobilization of their staff, the access to the needed materials. Some of the things are easy to get to and some will be difficult. So after tomorrow, we'll have a clear picture of what our overall timeline will be for the summer. And, probably the most pressing thing is being able to tell our elementary teachers whose classrooms are being affected, whether they have to commit 100% to clearing everything out, or whether we're going to be doing portions or none of it, depending on the timeline. So we promised them by Friday we'd be able to give them hard information on that.
I guess my question is, does Bill has a lot to do, and his team as well, and groundswork and everything. Can they honestly commit to putting the amount of time into it that if we have Schoolhouse do it, they're gonna have somebody there on site watching everything, photoing everything, going that, can we actually do that? I mean, if we're gonna manage it, that's fine, but can we actually do what we're really going to need to do? That's a question I have.
Well, an improvement in our staffing and supervision is this mid-year, actually spring, Bill was able to hire a technician that is able to help carry some of the networking responsibilities that he had previously. Also, he has his assistant director, Jason, who is excellent at his work and is doing primarily all of the grounds, outside of the building. So Bill has more opportunity than he has in the past to contribute to this, but, it's not illogical to say he can't be standing on site watching what's happening throughout each workday. He'll have other responsibilities as well during this time.
I'll be in all the job meetings as well, just as a second year. I mean, I don't have any construction experience, but I have been involved in these capital projects at other districts. So I do know the process. I do know what to look for and not look for. So I will be helping him with that.
But so, we would need to know what Bill already hit, what his plans are for the summer, projects that he needs to be done, because he may be committed to things that he has to do around here to determine if he really has the time to oversee this project. It's hard to make a decision either way.
Yeah, I think Bill's input is definitely important in this
Right.
situation. I think I would also like to hear ways maybe how we could possibly fund it.
I could look
And
into
just
that.
look into that
Yep.
and see what happens.
That, and I think get some feedback from Bill and the architect after tomorrow's meeting.
Yeah.
Maybe a follow-up from what their feelings are after the meeting is tomorrow with all the contractors. Because I think there's 3 different contractors, 4?
Yep.
General contractor, electrical, plumbing.
It'd be such a peace of mind though, knowing you're getting everything done right,
Well,
Yeah.
which
and
I
the
don't
thing
think
that
we've
would
ever
be
felt that
the
way.
most concerning to me is that you're talking about asbestos removal, right? And it's over the summer, so you don't want to bring kids in the fall if that hasn't been done right or something's still open or exposed. So that would be my concern.
And the work, the dugouts and all, baseball field and all that, that's not part of this project, but those are things that Bill's going to be overseeing.
Right.
And are gonna happen over the summer, so there are things he's gonna have going on, so yeah, I think we need to get a sense from him on what is,
He's only got so much time.
right. I mean, and there's a lot to
8
do.
different ways. Rather pay him the money.
There's certainly a benefit to having the same 4 contractors doing the additional work, because those job meetings, we'll be talking about all of it.
Okay.
True.
So a couple other things. I did ask Craig, our transportation director, about the stop sign cameras. And we have sent in 13 violators as of March. And he did send Dr. Bailey and myself a couple videos, and it's very, very good quality. You can easily read their.
Do our officers go out to the offenders?
We give it to our SRO.
Yeah,
and
do they go
I'm
out?
not sure what happens after that.
After school hours.
That was one of the things that I think we were interested in, because we felt like having a presence there of the SRO may have some sort of impact on it not happening again.
Yeah, it's true, but they've been, either SROs are doing it after school hours, or handing it to another officer to do it.
Right.
Gotcha.
And making sure we don't have repeat, violators or the same place, I guess.
As we were choosing this
Locations.
over the other one, which was just a mail-in ticket, we always felt like not having that touch point would be kind of.
Or the legal teeth behind
Yeah.
it.
Right. The sheriff's able to do something with it.
Right.
Okay.
What's the how many of the, are all the buses armed now?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
That was the big thing we did in March, the rest of
Right.
the installation.
Okay. You have anything else?
Yeah, just one more, kind of a playground update. I know there's been some discussion around the playground. So, A.W. Becker's Playground has been ordered. There's a purchase order that's been sent to the vendor on October 11th. Initially, he had an estimate installation date of March 23, but there's been significant lead time issues with the equipment, which has resulted in installation being pushed back to the summer. The vendor has promised that he'll have the equipment installed by the end of August.
Oh, great.
Again, that
6 months
playground is being funded by our ESSA grant.
Sorry, our kids are still
Our
down.
what?
Our ESSA grant or ARP grant,
I was under the impression it was being funded with the FARG money. Okay.
that's the other one.
That's Peterby.
That's Peterby.
Peterby,
Okay.
yep. So Peterby, on April 20th, our architect and his team met with the vendor and Bill at PBC to discuss the site layout and installation options. And again, at this point, the drainage that was in the $2.3 million capital project has been removed because they're going to be adding a different floor that doesn't need the draining. I don't know off the top of my head exactly what it's called.
Rubberized surface.
Rubberized surface, so the
Okay.
additional draining is not needed because we're adding
Okay.
that. On May 18th, they had a meeting for PBC Playground Committee with the vendor, Mr. Jones and Bill were in attendance. They discussed what features were important to the group and the scope of work that could be accomplished within the set budget. The vendor provided several concepts that met the goals of the group, and their next meeting is scheduled for May 30th. And then on May 30th, the meeting was postponed because Rob did not, or the vendor, did not provide proposals on time. And June 5th, several designs were shared with Mr. Jones, distribute to the playground committee. Again, that's where we are right now. Again, this is being funded with FARG money.
So optimistically, Peterby probably will not see a new playground until next summer. I mean, it's taken over
Right,
a
it's def-
year
I'm pretty
for
sure with the
A.W.
lead,
Beckers.
if the lead time continues to be this poor, yes, I would see not till at least next summer.
Are there other vendor options, or are we only considering one?
There are others. I don't have any information on, why we haven't gone to others, but if we've already started it with this one, we would push it back even longer if we decided to go with a different vendor.
We started the Becker project with a few vendors and limited it down to this one, and we thought it would be sensible for us to use the same vendor in both of the schools. The price difference in some of the vendors was like 100% in some instances, so this is state contract, Jesse?
I don't know that, but I
don't
believe so.
remember.
If we didn't go out to bid, then it would be state
Oh,
contract,
okay,
yeah.
yeah. So, but the quality of the work and the craftsmanship of the equipment it's not like it's substandard. It was just a lot more affordable than the other companies we looked at. So we didn't even go back out and look at additional companies this time for Peterby. Becker started that process last summer and fall. So they were ahead of the curve. And I would say as far as supply chain stuff, anything's possible. You think of like in our own lives where we couldn't get something for 6 months and then all of a sudden we had all of it all the time. So I have that little sliver of hope that whatever the hiccup is, whether it's plastics or metals or factory workers, ideally they resolve it and it speeds things up.
Brian, if we could just add this, this may even be considered old business, but it sounds like you're continuing to meet at the school level. If they could report out to the board on the status and maybe the timeline as you go along, it'll help keep people informed.
Yeah, so like
Yeah,
an
again,
update.
it sounds like,
Sure,
they're
absolutely.
meeting, they're awaiting some final decisions and then have to purchase some stuff before it can
Yep,
be.
absolutely.
So we'll add it to old business. AW
whatever it
Becker
is.
and
And that
Peter
way,
Bay
and that way
Playground.
there'll be report outs on it.
Okay,
And then there's, I'm sorry, one more, the middle school.
pushing your luck, all right.
Yeah, so the equipment is, for the middle school playground is sitting at the vendor's warehouse. It's just waiting installation. The vendor is gonna be on site on the 15th to review installations and logistics.
The 15th?
Like
Yes.
tomorrow?
That's not like
Yeah,
a normal kid playground. That's like different types of stuff for
I
middle school.
personally don't know what this
It's more
equipment
of a
looks like.
climbing,
It's the
climbing
Yeah, it
like
was
more
do-
Project Adventure type
Okay.
thing.
Yeah, it
Are
was
they putting
donated.
it out by the other climbing walls? Is that where they're,
Oh, I'm not sure about
because
that.
I
don't know where
wasn't
it's
even
gonna be
aware that
located.
there was a playground at the middle school.
There's
I
not.
think it's
There isn't
new.
now.
It was donated, thing, yeah.
Only 6th grade gets recess. The others get study hall. 7th and 8th grade don't go outside unless their PE teacher takes them
I think
outside.
I think it's along the line, I think someone said it over here, a Project Adventure kind of a
Yeah.
climbing thing, not like slides and swings and those kind of things. So, yeah, that was donated a while ago, and, you know, that should be going in this summer as well.
Okay,
Now that's all I have.
good, thank you.
Can I ask a question? Only because we don't have Fred right now, I'd ask him, but what's our numbers look like for the new pre-K program? Oh, good question.
Oh, I'll have to find out.
Okay.
Enrollment has been open for a while, and, you know, we have tentative approval on, we had talked about universal grant for full-day kindergarten. We have tentative approval.
Okay.
Which means that they're going to continue to review. There's a couple of benchmarks that we're required to meet, including our plans for a certain type of, like women-owned businesses, and it's a per pupil allocation. So if we don't fill the seats, we won't get as much funding as we projected to get. So there are a few things more, few more steps, but it's great initial news. But I'll find out exactly where we are with that. There's an incentive for us to fill every seat. That's where we want to be.
Is there a plan to do any additional reach outs if it seems like the numbers are not hitting?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. New business items.
I have a couple. We all attended a workshop last week, and I would like to formally ask that we set up a time to meet for setting a new mission and vision statement and setting up goals for the board, the superintendent, and the district in whatever formats they need to be done, whether it be executive for some of the things that pertain to employment or in public for them to view. And then my second item is I would really like an update from the athletic director on the uniforms for the fall teams. Fall is quickly approaching, and I'd like to ensure that all the sports teams have the proper uniforms, the correct sizes as much as is possible, so that we're not sending out our children in a variety of uniforms provided by sometimes families and the school district. I think we've asked for that a couple of times, and I'd really like to see a
think I did
report on
ask
what
for
that is.
I did ask for that, and I think Dr. Bell, you said you were gonna possibly have some preliminary stuff done together on that. It was particular to the girls' modified soccer team, as well as to the ordering of budgets for things for upcoming fall, socks, things like that. Make sure that the coaches had their budgets in and that was being ordered.
I'd also kind of like to know what the plan was for the storage of these uniforms. That had been mentioned that she was in the process of working on that process, and I'd like to know what the resolution was. Are they putting in Tupperware containers and stored somewhere, or what's happening to them in the interim so that we're ensuring that they're being stored properly so they can last for as long as they're supposed to, and so that they can be used when the team needs them and that they're not being searched for when the season starts.
Right.
They should not
And
start a
clearly
season.
identifying who's responsible. So if
I
it's a
would agree with
coach
you.
level,
Yep.
making sure it's part of their training or their orientation or whatever.
I would agree. Yep.
Just to add on to not just the uniform thing, we used to get updates from the athletic director after every sports season. So we had one after fall, we had one after winter and after spring. We did have one after the fall this year, but we didn't have a winter one. We didn't have a spring one that reported out on, you know, what the teams, how many athletes participated, what,
Yeah,
you know,
that'd be great.
and things of that nature. You know, when we moved this position to administrative position, I had very high hopes that there would be more transparency, more communication, you know, there'd be evaluation of coaches. We have not seen that. You know, I'm hopeful that we could get some sort of report out, a regular report out, or the board could get regular report out from the athletic director on not only what's going on, what the plan is for the next season, but what the vision of the program is moving forward. I have yet to see that, and I'm very hopeful that maybe year 2 will be stronger than year 1.
I would agree again.
Okay. Can I add those to new business? Anything else? Old
Will we,
business?
sorry, for old business, are you moving on to that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Testing program follow-up and RCS graduation rates. I don't know if we'll have that info until after graduation. Testing program follow-up was, you're gonna ask about that one, was that one of the other ones, or?
No, I was just gonna ask, I'm new to this, like, what timeframe would we be expected to see those results? I know that hasn't happened yet, so.
July, no question about on both of them, we can give preliminaries.
What do we mean by testing program follow-up?
It was follow-up to that presentation we had that
Presentation.
night.
So are we looking for specific information, or are we,
I asked the same question. I mean, I was presuming that it was Regents exam scores, and obviously 3 through 8 scores we won't have back, but we would have Regents exam scores by the end of this month, so they can be shared. Was there something
AP
else?
scores too, because I think that's one of the things that we have asked about in the past, you know, how those AP exams are going. You know, specifically, I know I've brought up things about some of the AP classes and some of the scores I've heard about, and I think we've talked about improving or potentially even changing. Fred had talked about before he had left, maybe moving on, and I think the principal at the high school had talked about moving on from AP physics to maybe a different.
UHS or
Yeah.
college and high school. The AP take a little bit longer, even though the tests were in May. I'm not sure if any of your parents received any scores. Parents would get them the same time as we would. So.
I think the other important thing was participation numbers, not just, grades and exam numbers, but participation.
Well, I think-
Some classes are more popular than others.
Right. And I think part of the presentation was a tone of, a robust tier 1 instruction, and we were looking for there to be a little bit more meat on the bone about what that looks like.
I don't know if this is prudent for me to ask, but in regards to the test scores that we do receive, I think there are a lot of other things that the teachers are doing in the classroom that are not reflected in those scores that I think would be beneficial for us to see, especially those students that are perhaps in the struggling category, how much improvement they have made, because that should be noted as well. They may not score at a 3 or a 4, but the improvement they made throughout the year can speak to the efficacy of the teaching and what's being done for intervention services.
That will work for the 3 through 8 tests, not as well for Regents exams.
Yeah,
But,
that's reasonable. I
But
agree.
wasn't there, part of that presentation, though, was the disparity between this one-time score versus the measures they put in place locally within the school? So I think we just needed to know what some of those measures were looking like, so there would be more optimism, as opposed to only seeing the one time that may not be truly reflective.
And I think it's a better reflection of what's going on in the classroom, perhaps if you see more data points as opposed to just one stagnant point that compares you to the whole state, because I think it's important to note the successes that are occurring.
I've always found it really fascinating to see like class averages, because class averages, the neat thing about being at the high school is if you're teaching a Regents level class, there's so much more predestined vision of where you need to go. It's not always as clear at the younger levels because there isn't that one moment in time, like you say, one moment in time that's supposed to be aligned with the standard. So I've always found it fascinating to say, like, what's the average of students in biology versus what's our average on the state assessment? Is our grading reflective, or student performance, like throughout the year, is it reflective of how we do on the state exam? That being said, not all state exams are created equal either. I mean, we've gone through some changes with a few exams over the last few years. That means changing teaching strategies, and some of it's an unknown. We've been field testing exams over the last few years, and some of them are getting deployed for the first time. So we have to acknowledge that too. Our staff are adapting, have been adapting for 4 or 5 years. I was going to say, Jean will be here like 7 days. By the time we get to July 12th, we should make her present. So I'm going to email her and tell her.
I think part of this too was, as Tina said, the academic instruction being the start. It's not necessarily the start and the end, right? So that's important, that tier one instruction, but it's beyond that, strategies to ensure that teachers are supported in delivering that instruction effectively and addressing some of the environmental, behavioral challenges that are occurring, particularly I think in the middle and high schools. I know that soon after that meeting, very swiftly and promptly, an email went out to students reminding them that cell phones are prohibited in classrooms and earbuds should not be in their ears and hoods should not be worn unless there's a good reason, which I think was a great, timely response. And I've heard some feedback that it's improved the atmosphere within the building, which is good. But things like that, a report out on how effective that was and what else might be planned to make sure that our teachers are in the classrooms working their tails off, providing that academic instruction. But if we don't have the right climate, mindset, behavioral issues under control, then there's only so far they can take the instruction. So a lot of that presentation was on, tier one academic instruction. But I left wanting to hear more about other strategies beyond that to make sure that the instruction is effective.
I'd also like to know what the teachers need in their classrooms to be successful. I think that's an important component for what we need to provide.
I can't hear you, Jenny, I'm sorry.
I think it's important for us to know what the classrooms need, what the teachers need in the classroom in order for them to be as successful as possible. What supports can we provide for them in whatever format that looks, policy change, additional materials. I don't know because I'm not there.
And more information to the climate of what's going on in the school. And everything. Like Mike said, you can teach your heart out, but if the climate isn't conducive to learning, kids aren't going to learn. So.
You want to ask one more time before you?
No,
Before you leave.
my final ask, can we please budget for supplies for teachers? I'm tired of paying about $1,000 a
support that
year
100%.
for classroom supplies. I love these kids, they're not mine, but I pay for about, 15 to 18 kids worth of supplies each and every year because we don't have them and there isn't a budget for the teacher to get them. I know that I've heard from Joanne and other business officials that it's an open door. That does not reach the classroom teacher.
Are we doing bulk ordering this year,
For,
supplies?
oh yeah, for the, next year?
Yeah.
It's
for fall.
unfortunate, the problem with bulk supplies, they get changed by the business office for the cheapest price. So the classroom teacher puts in a specific supply that meets the need, a particular crayon, a particular marker that meets the need of the classroom, and it comes back as something different.
I don't know what's happened before me, but the teacher puts in a requisition for the items that they want. I just literally print them out and send them to the vendor.
That's great. I'm gonna tell you that in the past, the business office has bulked them together and bulk purchased them and not always delivered them back because there's emails that go out at the end of the year that says, hey, anybody who needs this, come and get it.
The vendor could substitute, might depend, if you ask for one.
I'm just saying,
I'm not
it's
sure.
happened. So
Yeah,
I would
we'll
love
probably have
to
look at it.
see individual orders filled, packaged, and delivered.
Okay.
Yep.
Anything else? Policy committee meetings from 5/22 and 6/5 are attached. We will need a motion to approve 13/1 through 13/4. So I need a motion for those. Their second reading. Mr. Engel, Mr. McFerrin, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Policies passed. 13/5 through 13/7 are first reading only.
And I would like to make a motion to move 13.6 back to committee. We had a policy committee meeting on the cell phone policy that we went over, and we asked that the high school principal take a look at it. And the next day, there was a DLT meeting that they were going to look at it. I was in the understanding that they would look at it, and then it would come back to policy committee. DLT made some changes to that policy that I was on that meeting, Mike was on that meeting, that were outside of what we thought. So I don't even think it should be read tonight. I think it should be It's the first reading for use of electronic devices. I think that should come back, be sent back to policy committee so we could review those changes. And I would like to ask that both high school principals and both middle school principals attend that policy committee because we would like to hear the input directly from them. So I'm asking that that be moved back to committee and not be part of the first reading tonight.
Ed, I think 13.7 might have had some changes too, from feedback.
They just won't come back for
They won't
second
come
reading.
back for second, yeah. Right,
So yeah, they can just go back to committee. Like, there's no motion for them.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's what the.
that's fine. So if there was 13.7 as well, that's fine too.
We'll just put them on the agenda again at the next.
Yeah, just put them on the agenda again, and then we'll just bring them back
It'll be
again.
a second first reading.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay. Hearings and petitions,
We need to vote on that or not?
no, not the first readings. We ask all comments be addressed to the board from the podium microphone set up in the public, for the public. Please limit your question or statement to 3 minutes to ensure sufficient time for everyone to speak. Any topics which fall properly under executive session will not be discussed in public session. Limit your comment to 3 minutes, please. Jessica Barnes?
Hello, my name is Jessica Barnes. I have 2 children at Peter B. Coeymans Elementary. 2 years ago, I spoke virtually in front of most of you, asking the Board of Education to explore DAZA and DACT in regard to death threat messages my daughter received on her school-issued Chromebook. Unfortunately, this year, I have had to file several DAZA complaints on behalf of my daughter due to bullying in the district, which seems to be a systemic issue here. Bullying is a repeated one-way harassment of any kind. Bullying often is an overused, generalized word and many times mistaken for a social conflict, which RCS seems to be having a problem deciphering. The policy and procedure implemented by RCS administration, specifically Peter B. Coeymans Elementary, to address bullying is inadequate and problematic. There has not been one unbiased, independent investigation conducted by any qualified individual that did not hold any liability to the outcome. Therefore, I am requesting a full review of all investigative procedures, safety protocol implemented, and steps that are taken to draw a conclusion. My daughter reported to 2 individuals in her school at Peter B. Coeymans Elementary when she was intentionally grabbed in a sexualized part of her body, and no one took any action to keep her safe. I was not notified, and no investigation was commenced until I called for a meeting, and when I requested the meeting, the administration present confirmed that she did in fact report these allegations to the school. I would like the Board of Education to determine why every individual that was involved did not do their due diligence to ensure that she was safe, even though she was brave enough to do her part and report to the individuals who were supposed to keep her safe. RCS administration has failed her repeatedly as incidents have continued to happen from the first week of school until the final days of school. Our family is leaving this district due to the safety concerns. This is my only option to be sure she is safe and she feels safe. As the Board of Education, I hope that you all will enforce adequate measures to be sure there are no more victims like my daughter. Please choose to be an upstander, not a bystander. I have been labeled the bad guy for standing up and shining light on this issue, and we have experienced retaliation from other individuals and the district because of this. But when I was young, I was taught that when you know something is wrong, you say something, and that's why I'm here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Upcoming activities, June 19th, Juneteenth, we have no school. June 22nd is the last day of school. June 23rd is the class of 2023 graduation. And July 12th will be the organizational meeting for the Board of Ed here in the high school library. I will need a motion to go to executive session for discussions regarding proposed pending or current litigation and the medical, financial, credit, or employment history of a particular person or corporation or matters leading to the appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person or corporation.
I just think, I think that does work. I think he turned me off for the rest of the meeting. I just want to say a personal thank you to both Bill and Tina for stepping up for so many years. We had some time where it was really tough to get board members, and you guys did what you needed to do, so I appreciate that. I'm very grateful that we have people stepping up now because it's a long road here, and you guys know, 9 years?
9 years.
9 years? That's a long time to do this, so thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Good.
And with that, I'll motion to close it.
Second, I need a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.